Thank you for tuning in to the Cozy Mystery Quartet podcast. To round out the quartet, I am joined by Wendy Kendall, Susan McCormick, and Linda Hope Lee. I am ML Erdahl, and in this episode we're going to discuss tropes of the cozy mystery genre. A trope is a recurring theme. Fans will feel familiar when they reach them, no matter what genre they are reading. For example, a hero and a heroine having an awkward and possibly contentious first meeting in a romance novel, or a dragon flying through the sky spitting fire in fantasy stories. These are the moments that readers of these genres tune in for. If written well, cozy mystery tropes are classic hallmarks of the genre. If they are done poorly, they come across as tired cliches that make for a boring read. The four of us are going to discuss many of the expected tropes of the cozy mystery genre, so that when some of them invariably show up in your book, you'll be ready to put a fresh spin to delight your readers. When your amateur sleuth picks up the reins of crime solving, they start poking their nose in law enforcement's business, who, understandably, aren't keen on having their territory infringed upon. This brings us to the first trope: a police officer telling your main character to butt out of the investigation. This confrontation between the law and your character is on an inevitable crash course. Now, there are a ton of ways to write this, and it is going to differ based on the main character's relationship with the officer in question. In Mary Daheim's Alpine series, the main character is married to the town sheriff. The relationship is fractious when Emma Lord oversteps into her husband's job, but the conflict is marital in nature. Others are dating someone in the police force, which can create an interesting conflict as they are both courting and irritating each other. What I do not recommend is bringing in a faceless officer who delivers a general, "Get your nose out of our business if you know what's good for you," empty threat, and then disappears from the rest of the story. This trope can make for an entertaining source of conflict that can run the length of the story. Another fun trope are pets in cozy mysteries. Almost all the sleuths have a pet cat or dog. These pets make the readers feel a connection with your main character as they can bond over the mutual affection they have for their own pets. However, I recommend giving your pet some personality. My wife and I have always had 3 to 4 animals throughout our 17 years of marriage, and every single one of them has had their own personality traits that can jump out of the page. My main character, Crystal Rainey, owns a pet cat named Elf, who is patterned after our cat, Noelle. Noelle was half cuddly, half terrifying, and we lived in a constant state of unease with what shenanigans she was going to pull next. In Winter Takes All, Elf is constantly delivering attitude and scratches in equal measures to whoever crosses his path. Have fun with this aspect and bring the furry companion to life. Susan, can you think of any other tropes to discuss?
Thank you, Michael. I'll talk about 2 fun cozy murder mystery tropes. First, the misjudged death, when the hero figures out the death is not what it seems, or that there's a death at all, and the police don't believe him. With autopsies and cameras everywhere, this is a little hard to pull off, but is beautifully demonstrated in Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. A photographer with a broken leg idly spies on his neighbors across the courtyard. He sees the makings of a murder, his policeman buddy does not believe him, and he ends up pushed out the window by the murderer, breaking his other leg. In my first cozy mystery, The Fog Ladies, old ladies start to die in an elegant apartment building in San Francisco. Though these are unwitnessed deaths and autopsies are performed, the medical examiner is happy to ascribe the deaths to the follies of old age, climbing on a stool and falling off, and a stroke leading to a drowning in the bathtub. The Fog Ladies, spunky older ladies themselves, know the deaths are not natural and pull along a young, tired medical intern in their quest to catch the killer. Here's a truncated scene. "She didn't just fall off that stool. I know she didn't," Olivia Honeycutt said for the 3rd time. Alma Gordon was sorry she'd come. As soon as Mrs. Honeycutt settled them in with their drinks, she'd embark on this tirade about foul play. Foul play, which meant a killer, in their building. Oh, why hadn't she stayed home? Tommy said there was blood everywhere. Eda Carmichael downed half her iced tea and licked her lips, smearing her orange-red lipstick. Was Eda not afraid of anything? Mrs. Honeycutt continued. Muriel prided herself on her legs. You remember how she said she had dancer's legs, and if it hadn't been for her mother never wanting to pay for tap lessons, she could have been a rockette. Mrs. Flynn sputtered. A rockette? Skimpy little outfits no better than Hugh Hefner's Playboy bunnies? She wanted to be a rockette? Not wanted to be a rockette, just had the legs for it. Ladies, Mrs. Honeycutt tapped her hand on the table. You're straying from the point. The point is, Mrs. Bridge may not have died a natural death. Mrs. Carmichael piped up, her mouth full of cheese ball. Mr. Glenn would be all for that. You should have heard it the day of the funeral. A second common cozy mystery trope is food. So many stories involve food in some way. The protagonist might own a tea shop or a bakery or a catering service or a cafe. The protagonist might have cooking as a hobby or love chocolate or be addicted to donuts. Amazon has an entire category devoted to these, culinary cozy mysteries. In The Fog Ladies, main character Frances loves to cook, and every scene she's in features food. Dinner she cooks for the overworked young doctor, banana bread for the Fog Ladies, egg custard for the policeman. In Book 2, she continues to bake, but not molasses cookies. Here's an excerpt. Oh, how she missed Bill. His smell of wintergreen breath mints and coffee. His smile, showing teeth that got more crooked as he grew older. His solidness that softened over the years with all her baked goods, her molasses cookies being his all-time favorite. The Fog Ladies ate her cookies now, though she hadn't made the molasses ones since Bill died. Later, molasses cookies come up. The house smelled wonderful, but almost immediately Mrs. Noonan's throat tightened as she inhaled another delicious breath. We made cookies today, molasses, Evelyn Ringley said. Would you like one? No, thank you, Mrs. Noonan said quickly. Bill's favorite cookies. That molasses smell brought him back, but he wasn't there. Enid Carmichael was quicker and louder. Yes, fantastic, I'm starved. Evelyn offered Mrs. Carmichael the plate, and she took 2 of the large cookies. None for you, Frances? You always like baked goods. Tropes and cozy murder mysteries are familiar and fun. The Misjudged Death and food are 2 of my favorites. Linda, what tropes do you enjoy?
Thank you, Susan. Although specific tropes are used in cozy mysteries, further defining them will make these devices unique to a particular story. In this podcast, I'll discuss how to do that with 2 of these elements, the setting and the supporting characters. The setting. The cozy mystery setting trope is a small town. All small towns have common characteristics not found in large cities. A slower pace of life, a less dense population, and a lack of class extremes, to name a few. The cozy small town needs to be further characterized so that it is different from other small communities. For example, my Nina Foster books take place in Richmond, Washington. Richmond is a suburb of Seattle located on Puget Sound. Boats and ferries populate the water landscape, while farther inland, mountains form a distinctive backdrop. Although single people with occupations similar to those found in nearby Seattle are included in the population, families and retired folk dominate. In Book 2, Secrets to Die For, I used the retired population to create an even smaller setting trope. While Richmond is still the town, most of this story takes place at Marley Manor, the retirement home where Nina's grandmother, Jessica Bingham, lives. Similarly, in Book 4, Death Rings a Bell, much of the action again occurs in an insular setting within Richmond's environs. In this story, Nina solves a murder at Pacific Northwest University, her old alma mater. Creating a smaller setting within the town setting provides a distinct community for the sleuth to deal with in solving the mystery. Number 2, the supporting characters. As with the small town, supporting cast members also need to be individualized. Giving them specific traits, habits, pastimes, and descriptions will set them apart. These folk are often described as quirky, indicating humorous peculiarities of behavior. In Murder Between the Pages, Nina's grandmother Jessica appears to be the quintessential grandmother who bakes cookies, embroiders handkerchiefs, and wears her hair in tight curls. However, she's also a champion pool player who brings her own special cue stick to games held in Marley Manor's recreation room and who routinely beats all the men players who challenge her. Harriet Hambley, also a Marley Manor resident, is a supporting character in Secrets to Die For. In her professional life, Harriet gained fame as a home economist. In retirement, she continues to live on her past laurels, managing to infuse every conversation with a relevant, or not so relevant, reference to her past, be it an award, a winning recipe, or a TV appearance. This quirky behavior amuses the other residents, and hopefully the reader as well. So, while the use of tropes will meet the expectations of cozy mystery readers, offering variations will add a fresh take on them that is sure to please. Wendy, tell us about your tropes.
Thank you, Linda. One of my favorite common trope or theme within a cozy mystery is the amateur sleuth's interesting job or hobby. What's chosen is something that hooks the reader's curiosity. There are series with more kinds of jobs and hobbies than you can imagine. Whatever interest you have, there's a cozy mystery series to match, and more. So much variety. Gardeners, painters, yoga instructors, librarians, dog walkers, interior designers. I could go on. I was first hooked by the intriguing jobs and hobbies hook that was written in the Tea Shop Mysteries by my hero author, Laura Childs. This is an author who's an authority on teas and weaves fascinating information, history, and descriptions into her fabulous cozy mysteries, and we fans love it. My interest in the topic grows with each mystery in the series. I had no idea there's so much to know about tea. I've tried all kinds of new teas based on what I've learned from these mysteries. The sleuth's job or hobby not only adds dimension to the character, it enhances the story. These aren't thrillers about international spies and political intrigue. Cozies strive to describe a recognizable, personalized, comfortable world that's interrupted by a blip of mayhem and puzzling mystery. Our heroes and heroines don't spend all their time sleuthing, and readers want to know what they do during the rest of their time. Learning more about familiar, everyday life is central to cozy mystery success. A temporary escape from the burdens of adulthood and the world, for time to celebrate the little things that make life fun and interesting and enjoyable, like a nice cup of tea that's a blend you had never heard of before. In Cat Out of the Bag, Catherine Watson is a purse designer, and her love of purses comes from the incredible women's history that purses represent over the decades. Shapes and makes of purses have evolved to match the purpose and responsibilities and aspirations of the women who carry them. The extraordinary exploits of ordinary women. A theme exactly a great fit for a cozy mystery series. And included in the fun of it, Catherine Watson relates a person's personality to the bag they carry. That insight even sheds some light on specific suspects. On behalf of ML Erdahl, Linda Hope Lee, Susan McCormick, and I'm Wendy Kendall, thanking all of our listeners. We hope you like our talk, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.